New hope. Lena's hands flew across the control panel, desperate to keep her ship from shaking apart as it plummeted through the atmosphere of an unknown planet. The crash landing was inevitable. All she could do was try to make it survivable. With a teeth-rattling impact, the ship plowed into the ground, skidding hundreds of feet before coming to a smoking halt. Lena sagged back in the pilot's chair, her face pale but determined. She was alive. For now. Gingerly, she unbuckled herself and grabbed her emergency pack before hitting the hatch release. She had to get out and assess the damage. Maybe see if this planet had the resources to make repairs. The hatch hissed open, letting in a gust of blessedly breathable air. Lena clambered out and froze. She was surrounded by a group of tall, willowy aliens, their luminous silver skin and large black eyes marking them as a species she'd never encountered. And they were all staring at her with unmistakable suspicion. One stepped forward, towering over Lena's human frame. "Who are you?" it demanded in a musical but stern voice. "Why have you come to Zephyria uninvited?" Lena raised her hands placatingly. "My name is Lena. I'm a mechanic. My ship malfunctioned, and I crashed here by accident. I mean you no harm." The Zephyrian studied her a moment longer before gesturing at her ship. "You claim to be a mechanic, yet your vessel is in ruins. This does not inspire confidence." Lena bristled slightly. I kept that thing flying a lot longer than most could have. Besides, I bet I could fix some of your tech too." She paused, realizing she was surrounded by towering crystalline structures and floating devices that were clearly far beyond human engineering. "And yet, actually, a lot of your stuff looks like it's seen better days. What's the deal?" The Zephyrian's expression turned pained. "It is true. Much of our ancestral technology is failing, and the knowledge of how to repair it has been lost. Especially, its gaze shifted to an ornate fountain structure in the town square, silent and still. The Fountain of Zorantha. It has not flowed for thousands of years, yet our legends say it holds the memories and wisdom of our first civilization." An eager gleam entered Lena's eyes as she regarded the fountain. "Thousands of years, huh? Sounds like a challenge. Tell you what, let me stay and take a crack at fixing some of your tech. If I can get that fountain running again, you let me go on my way. Deal?" The alien leader hesitated, then nodded slowly. "We will discuss your proposal with the council. In the meantime, you will remain under guard." As several Zephyrians led Lena away, she glanced back over her shoulder at the fountain, her mind already puzzling out how an ancient alien relic might work. She had a feeling this was just the beginning of a very interesting adventure, proving her worth. Over the next several days, Lena found herself put to work on a variety of malfunctioning Zephyrian devices. At first, the aliens hovered over her distrustfully, convinced this strange human couldn't possibly understand their advanced technology. But Lena soon proved them wrong. Drawing on her years of experience jury-rigging finicky ship parts, she coaxed a sputtering power core back to life. She rewired a network of floating lights to glow twice as bright. She even fixed a food synthesizer that had been producing nothing but flavorless goo for years. Slowly, the Zephyrians' suspicious gazes turned to grudging respect, then outright amazement. This tiny human female was succeeding where their greatest engineers had failed for generations. Lena, for her part, felt a growing fascination with the alien tech. It was so different from anything she'd encountered, elegantly complex and profoundly old. She itched to get her hands on the silent fountain that was clearly a centerpiece of their society. Her chance came when the Zephyrian leader sought her out, its silver face unreadable. "The council has decided to let you examine the Fountain of Zorantha," it said solemnly. "You have proven your skill. But be warned, human, that device is sacred to us. Treat it with utmost care and respect." Lena nodded eagerly. "I will, I promise. Thank you for trusting me." Under the watchful eyes of the aliens, Lena approached the fountain, running a reverent hand along its smooth curves and etched symbols. She could practically feel the hum of dormant power thrumming beneath the surface. With a deep breath, she knelt and pried open a hidden access panel, peering inside at the most intricate circuitry she'd ever seen. This was alien technology far beyond her experience. And yet, there was a logic to it, an almost musical flow of energy she found herself instinctively attuned to. Biting her lip in concentration, she set to work, her deft fingers dancing through wires and crystals no human had ever touched. An hour passed. Then two. The Zephyrians began to mutter restlessly, wondering if they'd made a mistake in trusting their most precious artifact to this stranger. Just as their leader was about to call a halt, there was a sudden rumble. A pulse of pure white light burst from the top of the fountain, arcing into the sky before coalescing into a shimmering sphere that hovered above the square. The Zephyrians gasped, long-fingered hands covering their mouths in shock. The sphere began to swirl with color. Then an image coalesced, an ancient Zephyrian in ornate robes, speaking words in a long-dead dialect that nonetheless conveyed a sense of profound wisdom. As quickly as it appeared, the image vanished, leaving behind the white glow pulsing gently. Lena sat back on her heels, eyes wide with awe and a touch of trepidation. She had no idea opening the fountain would activate some kind of ancient hologram. What other secrets might it hold? Rising to her feet, Lena turned to the aliens, some of whom wore expressions of reverence, while others looked alarmed. "I think," she said carefully, "that we should talk about what this fountain can really do. Uncovering secrets." Lena found herself swept into a whirlwind of activity and intrigue in the aftermath of the fountain's activation. The Zephyrian Council convened an emergency meeting, debating heatedly in their musical language, while Lena waited nervously outside the chamber under guard. She had no idea if they would view her actions as a miraculous salvation or a terrible transgression. The one friendly face among the sea of suspicious stares was Zylar, a young scholar who had been one of the first to warm to Lena's presence. When the council finally adjourned, it was Zylar who came to escort Lena inside, his silver features unusually somber. "The elders have decided your fate," he said quietly as they walked. "They believe you were sent here for a reason, that your coming was foretold in ancient prophecies. You are to be granted access to the fountain, to study it, and unlock its full potential." Lena blinked in surprise. "That's good, right? I mean, I'm honored, but I'm just a mechanic. I don't know if I'm qualified to mess with something that important." "You underestimate yourself," Zylar chided gently. "In a matter of days, you have achieved what our people have not in millennia. The elders believe that is no coincidence." As they entered the fountain square, Lena was surprised to see a group of Zephyrians already clustered around the base, murmuring excitedly as they examined the glowing sphere that still hovered overhead. "What's going on?" she asked warily. "They are trying to decipher the ancient inscriptions on the fountain's base," Zylar explained. "Legends say they hold the key to fully activating its power, but the language has been lost to time." Lena frowned thoughtfully, then approached the fountain with a determined stride. The aliens parted before her, watching intently as she ran her fingers along the etchings, brow furrowed in concentration. It's not just a language," she murmured. "It's code, a program, and I think I know how to run it." Under the astonished gaze of the Zephyrians, Lena set to work, manipulating hidden controls with a surety that belied her unfamiliarity with the technology. Slowly, the sphere above the fountain began to pulse more rapidly, colors swirling hypnotically. Then, with a blinding flash, a shimmering figure materialized within it, a Zephyrian female of breathtaking beauty, clad in robes that seemed woven from starlight. "Greetings, children of Zephyria," the figure said, her voice resonating with ancient power. "I am Zorantha, first queen and guardian of our people. If you are seeing this message, then the fountain has been reactivated in a time of great need. Heed well the knowledge it contains, for it may be your salvation or your ruin." With that, Zorantha's image dissolves into a series of complex holographic schematics, diagrams of technology so advanced it made Lena's head spin. But woven through it all was an unmistakable thread of warning, a sense of a dark history barely held at bay. Ziller gripped Lena's arm, his eyes wide with a mix of wonder and apprehension. It's incredible, he breathed. With this knowledge, we could restore our civilization to its former glory. But it could also be incredibly dangerous in the wrong hands, Lena finished grimly. She had unlocked the secrets of the fountain. Now she had to make sure they didn't destroy the very people they were meant to save. An uneasy alliance. In the days following the fountain's full activation, Lena found herself at the center of a quiet but intense power struggle among the Zephyrians. The council had decreed that she was to have full access to study the ancient knowledge it contained, but she could feel the weight of their expectations and their fears. Some, like Ziller, saw her as a savior, the key to restoring their lost heritage. They urged her to unlock more of the fountain's secrets, to use its power to rebuild their crumbling cities and failing technology. But others watched her with open mistrust, whispering that she was an outsider who couldn't possibly understand the wisdom of their ancestors. They argued that the fountain's knowledge was too dangerous, that it should be sealed away again before it could bring ruin upon them. Caught in the middle, Lena threw herself into her work, poring over the holographic schematics and trying to decipher Zorantha's cryptic warnings. It was clear the ancient queen had been trying to convey something vital, but the specifics remained frustratingly out of reach. Late one night, as Lena sat cross-legged before the fountain, lost in thought, Ziller slipped into the square and sat down beside her. "You look troubled, my friend," he said softly. "The elders are growing impatient. They want results, answers." Lena sighed heavily. "I know, but this isn't simple engineering. There's a reason your people lost this knowledge. Zorantha was trying to tell us something, warn us. I can feel it." Ziller nodded slowly. In the oldest legends, it's said that the fountain holds the power to reshape reality itself, that it was used to end a terrible war that nearly destroyed our civilization. Lena's eyes widened. What kind of war? The records are fragmentary, but it seems we fought against another race, one that coveted our technology. The conflict was long and devastating, until Zorantha used the fountain to create a weapon that ended it decisively. But the cost was high. Much was lost, including the knowledge of how to control the fountain. A chill ran down Lena's spine as pieces began to click into place. The schematics she'd been studying, they weren't just for rebuilding. They were for weapons, defenses, and if Zorantha had used the fountain as a weapon once, "We can't let that happen again," she said firmly. "This knowledge, it's too powerful. It has to be protected, carefully studied, not exploited." Ziller met her gaze, silver eyes gleaming with determination. "I agree, but there are those on the council who would use it for their own gain. We must be cautious, work in secret." Lena took a deep breath, then held out her hand. "Together, then, we unlock the fountain's secrets, but we do it responsibly. Deal?" Ziller clasped her hand, his cool skin thrumming with restrained intensity. "Deal, for the future of both our peoples." As they shook on their pact, the fountain pulsed behind them, Zorantha's ghostly figure shimmering in and out of view. If Lena didn't know better, she might have thought the ancient queen looked pleased. But the moment passed, and the glow faded back to a steady, watchful gleam. There was work to be done, and the fate of worlds hung in the balance. The fountain awakens. Lena and Ziller worked tirelessly over the next few weeks, poring over the fountain's secrets and stolen moments away from the watchful eyes of the council. They were driven by a shared sense of urgency, a knowledge that they were racing against some unseen clock. Lena's understanding of the Zephyrian technology grew by leaps and bounds, guided by Zorantha's encoded wisdom. She learned how to harness the strange energies that powered their devices, to coax impossible feats from the ancient circuitry. Under her touch, the fountain came alive in ways it hadn't in millennia. Shimmering holograms spilled forth, depicting the rise and fall of the Zephyrian civilization in breathtaking detail. But woven through the grandeur were threads of darkness, hints of the looming threat Zorantha had sacrificed so much to forestall. One evening, as Lena and Ziller huddled over a particularly complex schematic, the fountain suddenly pulsed with a blinding intensity. Lena threw up a hand to shield her eyes, squinting through the glare as a figure materialized above the basin. It was Zorantha, but not the regal, composed queen from before. Her robes were torn, her face etched with strain and desperation. "If you are seeing this, then the time of crisis is upon you," she said urgently. "The enemy we fought so long ago has returned, seeking the power of the fountain. You must not let them claim it." With a flicker, the image changed, showing a fleet of dark, angular ships descending on Zephyria, raining fire upon the elegant spires. "I have left you the tools to fight this war," Zorantha continued, "but you must wield them wisely. The fountain's power is a double-edged blade. In the wrong hands, it could bring ruin to us all." The hologram faded, leaving Lena and Ziller staring. The hologram faded, leaving Lena and Ziller staring at each other in horrified realization. "The beacon," Lena whispered. "When I activated the fountain, it must have sent out some kind of signal. They know. They're coming." Ziller's face was grim. "Then we have no time to lose. We must prepare our defenses, rally the council." They sprang into action, Lena's fingers flying over the fountain's controls as she activated the ancient weapons systems detailed in Zorantha's schematics. All around the city, dormant machinery roared to life, force fields shimmering into existence around key structures. Zilla raced to convene the council, his usually calm demeanor cracking with urgency as he relayed Zorantha's warning. There was shock, disbelief, and no small amount of anger directed at Lena. But in the face of the looming threat, they had no choice but to mobilize. Within hours, the peaceful city had transformed into a fortress bristling with ancient weaponry. Zephyrians who had never held anything more dangerous than a calibration tool now manned battle stations, their faces set with determination. At the center of it all was the fountain, pulsing with restrained power. Lena stood before it, Ziller at her side, watching the skies with a mixture of fear and resolve. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she murmured. "I only wanted to help." Ziller laid a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You have helped, more than you know. Without you, we would be facing this unprepared. Now, at least, we have a chance." A chance. Lena clung to that thought as the first of the enemy ships pierced the atmosphere, their dark hulls glinting with malevolent purpose. The battle for Zephyria, for the fountain, for the fate of two civilizations, had begun, and Lena found herself at the very heart of it, a human caught in a war beyond the stars. She took a deep breath, fingers poised over the fountain's controls. It was time to see just what this ancient power could do. Destiny unfolds. The battle raged above the spires of the city, energy beams crisscrossing the sky in a deadly light show. The Zephyrian defenses, awakened after millennia of dormancy, proved a formidable match for the invading fleet, but Lena could see it was a losing battle. There were simply too many enemy ships, their technology too advanced. "We need more power," Zeller shouted over the din of explosions. "The shields are failing." Lena gritted her teeth, her hands a blur over the fountain's controls. She had unlocked marvels she never dreamed of, weapons that could vaporize a ship with a single shot, but it wasn't enough. The enemy kept coming. In a moment of desperate inspiration, she plunged her hand into the shimmering water of the fountain itself. Instantly, her mind was flooded with a rush of knowledge, a force that threatened to overwhelm her entirely. She saw the true scope of the fountain's power, the incredible potential that Zorantha had sought to harness and control. With a monumental effort of will, Lena focused that power, channeling it through her own body and into the city's defenses. The effect was immediate and staggering. The force fields flared with blinding intensity, the ancient weapons pulsing with renewed vigor. Enemy ships began to falter, their hulls cracking under the onslaught. But the toll on Lena was severe. She could feel the energy coursing through her, burning her up from the inside. She knew she couldn't sustain this for long. Lena. Zyler's voice cut through the haze of pain, his hands gripping her shoulders. You have to stop. It's killing you. With a gasp, Lena wrenched herself away from the fountain, collapsing into Zyler's arms. Around them, the battle still raged, but the tide had turned. The Zephyrians were pushing back the invaders. In the heart of the city, a cheer began to rise, spreading like wildfire as the enemy ships began to retreat. Against all odds, they had won. As the last of the invaders fled, Lena struggled to her feet, leaning heavily on Zyler. The Zephyrian council approached, their faces a mix of awe, gratitude, and residual suspicion. You saved us, the leader said, inclining its head to Lena. We were wrong to doubt you. Your courage and ingenuity have preserved our civilization. Lena managed a weary smile. I only did what anyone would have. Your people have a lot to offer the galaxy. I'm just glad I could help protect that. In the days that followed, as the city began to rebuild, Lena found herself hailed as a hero. The Zephyrians marveled at her abilities, offering her a permanent place among them. But Lena knew her destiny lay elsewhere. With Zyler's help, she repaired her ship, preparing to return to the stars. You could stay, Zyler said softly, watching her work. You would be welcome here, honored. Lena smiled, touching his cheek gently. I know, and a part of me is tempted. But there's so much more out there to discover, to learn. I can't turn away from that. Zyler nodded in understanding. Then go with our blessing. But know that you will always have a home here among us. As Lena's ship lifted off, the fountain pulsed once in farewell, Zorantha's image flickering briefly in the depths. Lena knew she would never forget her time on Zephyria, or the lessons she had learned. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and she was ready to meet them head-on. With a smile of pure anticipation, Lena pointed her ship towards the stars and blasted off into the unknown. Her adventures were only just beginning.